There's a story about a man trapped in a burning building. There's literally smoke everywhere and just flames closing in on him. But right before the fire overtakes him, a firefighter comes out, appears, and yells, "Follow me, I know the way out." Now imagine that man looks at the firefighter, shakes his head and says, "Nah, I got this. I'll figure it out myself." It sounds insane, right? You would think that person is brain dead. But that's exactly what most people do with God every single day. See, there's one mistake that's so dangerous, so deadly, that if you don't correct it today, immediately, it could cost you everything, including your eternity. And most people don't even realize they're making it. So let me break it down to you with straight facts, and let's talk about it. This first point is going to come with a verse from Proverbs. I'm going to read it to you. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death." I mean, think about that. There are paths in life that just feel right, that look right, but they're actually leading you, the viewer watching this, straight into destruction. And that's the problem we have. Most people actually don't reject God by saying, "I hate him." They reject him by saying, "I got this." First, we chase money without even asking if it's part of God's plan. Some people in this world, they grind endlessly. All they do is work late nights and chase promotions and basically sacrifice their time with God, all in the name of securing the bag, like the rap group Migos. Being still, some people's biggest inspiration instead of God. Degenerate. But if you're making money at the cost of your peace, your integrity, or even your relationship with God, ask yourself, logically speaking, is it really a blessing? God's provision never requires you to compromise your values, neglect your faith, or even become a slave to anxiety. If you have to force it or even take a step outside of God's will to even get it, believe me, it is not from Him, it's from the world. Then we just jump into relationships without even asking for His wisdom. How many people in this world do you think that they pray for a godly spouse? Basically, every man's dream to get a high quality, beautiful, feminine wife, and vice versa for women. But just settle for literally anyone who gives them attention. They ignore the red flags, they justify toxic behavior, and it gets to the point where they convince themselves, "I can fix them," when we both know you can't. Not in the long run. Respectfully, if God didn't send them, they're only going to keep breaking you. A relationship outside of God's timing and approval will always cost you more than expected. Love that pulls you away from God's love is not real love. It's just a trap that you let yourself being set up for by the enemy. And what shocks me is that we always make decisions not because of what is good, but because of what feels good. Emotions, unfortunately, they can be very deceptive. Just because something feels right in the moment doesn't mean it aligns with God's plan, right? Think about it. Use your brain. Eve felt like the fruit was good for wisdom. Samson felt like Delilah loved him. Judas felt like 30 pieces of silver was worth it for betraying Jesus, the Messiah. But what they felt led them to this destruction. The enemy doesn't really need you to hate God. He just needs you to follow your feelings instead of his voice. And before we know it, we're in a mess, wondering why everything is falling apart. God actually never stopped speaking, but the problem is that most people just stop listening. And when you ignore his voice long enough, you'll just end up calling it fate when life feels like it's just falling apart from your hands. When really it was just the consequence of shutting him out by using your hands to cover your ears and your soul instead of using them for the right purpose. That's the key. But even then, the biggest mistake, the one that actually costs people their eternal life, is just thinking that they don't need Jesus. In the book of John 14:6 says, Jesus answered, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me." Read that again. The way, the truth, and the life. Not one way, not just one truth. The truth, the way. And yet most people live like they can just figure it out on their own. They try to be good enough. They chase success, validation, and even religion without actually surrendering to Christ. And the harsh truth is, unlike what most people think, that good works is what's going to save you, being a good person just won't save you at all. Praying without a real relationship with Jesus won't save you. Going to church but never surrendering your life won't save you. Knowing about God but not truly knowing Him won't save you. And the mistake on top of those mistakes is thinking that you have time to get serious later. Thinking you can live however you want, going to that party, going drinking with your friends, and just come back to God when it's more convenient for you in your life. When everything is falling apart, despite you being a fornicator and a worthless sinner, you still choose to follow the ways of the world and then ask God for help after following it. Tell me that's not contradictory, my friend. Listen, tomorrow is not promised. And the biggest lie that the enemy tells people is that they have plenty of time to make things right. The truth? The time is now. So let's go back to the man in the burning building. The firefighter did indeed tell him the way out, but either his pride, his fear, or even his doubt made him ignore the warning. And because of that, he didn't make it. Now here's my question to you. Are you making the same mistake with God at this moment? And be honest with yourself. The book of Proverbs warns us that what seems right can actually destroy us. And the book of John simply makes it clear. Jesus is the only way to life. So here's the call. If you've been shutting your ears on purpose and ignoring God's voice, it's time to listen. It's time to open your soul up. If you've been waiting to fully surrender to Christ, the time is now, because the fire is closing in and Jesus is standing right in front of you, telling you, follow me. The only question is, will you? If this message hit home, leave a comment below and tell me, what is one thing that's stopping you from finally building that beautiful relationship with Jesus? With Him. I love you. Stay blessed and let Him take care of your spirit. Ciao.